the dark art of mastering, like a true mastering engineer, has a very different perspective to a mix engineer, I get the impression. And you talked about the rapidly changing challenges of working in this kind of post-digital age. And do you feel like you're kind of getting, what's the word I'm looking for? Your mixes are coming in kind of pseudo-mastered. They're coming in really hot and really loud.
Yes. So the new, it's kind of, I mean, it's the new trend. It's been the last 5 years that mixers mix a song and then they pre-treat it, you know, for level to make it sound mastered. So when the artist listens to it, they can say, okay, that's an idea of what it should sound like. And then I get it, and it's already loud enough, maybe too loud in a lot of cases. And they're so used to what the reference is, the pre-treated mix, that it's very hard to move away from that. And a lot of times it's like, you know, they just made it really loud. It's a little distorted. They're like, don't worry about it. The guy will do that. And sometimes it's like, I can't get it that loud without distorting. There's so many complicated things that go into doing that, which I don't understand why. It's like, if you're going to mix something and then pre-treat it and give the client and everybody that pre-treated mix, that's the mix. Nobody's hearing the actual mix. So how can you make comments to it? How can you know what I'm saying? Like, if you've never heard the mix, then we're going with what you did in the pre-treating. And a lot of times that compresses things or limits things and puts things in a different dynamic, raises vocals, lowers vocals, makes drums hit harder, makes them hit less, you know, it changes everything. And it's kind of confusing, you know, when you get into like, okay, let me take the mix and try and redo that, and it sounds better than the pre-treated one. And you have to get the artist or the producer to separate themselves from that pre-treated one and now listen to your master and say, okay, is that better? Is that what I want? Or am I just used to the other one? Right. It's kind of a weird place right now.
That's interesting, because I sent a record to Lursen Mastering, with a previous guest on this podcast, Ruben Cohen, and they said, when you make a request, have you got space to fit this into your schedule and how much, they immediately start saying, what's on your stereo bus? Can you take all of it off and give us two versions, one with what's all the stuff that's on your stereo bus, which I believe you were referring to as pre-treatment there. It's like this kind of fake master, and then send us that without. And for the members of the audience who are maybe not so deep in the rabbit hole of audio and who might be a little bit lost with the things that we're saying, I think it's fair to say that the pre-treatment that you're talking about there, Chris, the kind of the pseudo master that people put on their mixes, is a little bit like trying to judge a photograph with a kind of orange filter over the top of it. So you're not really accurately commenting on the color and the dynamics.
Exactly. Like, I just don't understand logically, if you say this is the mix, why wouldn't you want the artist and the producer to hear the mix? Why do you, like, everybody has this thing in their head that if they listen to the mix and it's not loud enough, like, people are going to play the mix immediately against other songs. It has to be loud enough. And to me, that's just like, people tell me the answer to that and it still doesn't make sense to me. Why are you just doing the mix then? If the bus is part of it, then that's what it is. There is only that to go out. But if you're going to say, well, this is the mix and this is my fake mastering, why would you want to give an artist fake mastering? You know what I'm saying? Everything that the mixers are saying why they do this now is, it doesn't make sense if you really sit down and analyze it. Like, if you do a mix and you're like, this is the mix, it sounds amazing, then you give that to the artist and tell the artist, the mastering guy will raise the level. Don't worry about that. Listen to the mix.
Right. So this is a really specific technical question. Would you recommend that for mix engineers, would you recommend that they bounce their mixes out at some kind of nominal level, like -3 dB, or is it not that specific?
The level thing is never gonna come to a final number or say, like, this is where your mix should be. The mix should sound the way you want it to sound, whether it's loud or low. And you should believe, or you should strive to say that what you've done in that mix is exactly what you want represented later on in the mastering, just maybe louder or lower. The whole level thing too is kind of like, it's just taking over the industry in the most ridiculous way, that louder is better in a playlist.
Yeah.
I actually was listening I listen to New Music Friday every Saturday if I go for a walk or I'm driving around, and a song that I actually mastered, artist will remain anonymous, the mix came on and I had to jump for my volume control to turn it down because it was so loud that I was like, oh my God. And I just knew, like, I had no idea it was coming up in the playlist, but I knew that when I mastered it, that it was like hitting -3 LUFS in the peaks.
Right. And so were you saying that when you were listening to it, I apologize, were you saying that when you listened to it, it came on louder than you expected it to come on?
Way louder, like so much that I had to jump and turn it down. I was in my car driving and I just was like listening to the song before it and I was really into it. And I was like, this sounds good. And, you know, I'm driving, listening to these songs. And then this song that I did comes on. It's just like, it's just, I mean, it was overtly loud. And that people always say, I don't want my record to be so low that someone has to reach for it and turn it up. Well, the adverse is that somebody has to reach for it and turn it down.
That's exactly
nobody's
right.
Nobody's just going to leave it that loud. If you're listening to something like 5 songs in a row and you're like, okay, this is loud and good, and then the next one comes on and it's louder, that's, you know, like what's the benefit for that?
So
for me, I automatically turned it down and said, that's too loud. So for the regular person listening, what would they say? Oh, this is so much better. It's mind blowing how much better it is because it's so loud. You know,
yeah.
Like, nobody thinks that way, but mixers, mastering engineers, and producers.
That's exactly right. Why was it so loud that you were unhappy with it? If it was your work, had the client pushed you there, or
the client pushed me?
I understand.
And it was just like, this is what it is. And that's the worst part about doing what I do, is when, you know, someone comes to me and trusts me for my 40 years of mastering and then says, yeah, okay, just do what I tell you. I'm not really like, I mean, I do it because I do it, but I'm not a fan of working that way. You know, that's not what I do is about. And that's, you know, I don't feel like, you know, after me doing what I do for so long, that's why people come to me, is just to say, do whatever the hell I want, you know?
Often good, let's say, people instructing creative work, artists commissioning, mixing and mastering, things like this, or directors working with actors, anything where there's a transaction where someone wants a result from the other person, the most fluid relationships are the ones where the director, artist, or whoever is commissioning the work is kind of saying, I like what you do, so I'm just going to give you this project and let you do your thing with it. Is that what you were kind of describing there? You like people to just, yeah.
I feel like I do my best work when people say just do whatever you do, because obviously my focus is making your song sound amazing.
Yeah.
That's my focus. But if you're saying just make it this loud, then all the creative energy and all the creative thoughts are just erased to raise the level and smash it and do whatever.